could it be that people are actually moving to Portland now because of our weather? Have you heard about the word climate refugee? Well, in today's video, I'm going to share with you some very interesting things that have been occurring lately that I think is going to be a trend about moving to Portland. So stick around, we're getting after it right now. Hey, if you're new to our channel, hit the subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you can be a part of our community that gets our videos every week about Portland life, moving, living in Portland. We love to put out content weekly, and we even love it when you guys reach out to us. We got a few texts from people outside the area just this week. Always fun to engage and help you understand what it's like living in Portland and moving to Portland if that's in fact what you're hoping to do. All of our contact information is listed below. Reach out, we'd love to help. So I thought I would make a video about some interesting things that have been happening lately, because behind the scenes, we are getting calls and texts from folks that are living out of state that are thinking about making a move to Portland. Maybe that's you. Maybe that's why you're watching this video right now. You're like, yeah, I'm in an area that I'm considering moving out of because of climate. Now, I'm not here to get into politics about climate change and all that stuff, but no one can deny that the weather patterns have been a little bit much lately, if not the last few years. And we're kind of seeing a disturbing trend, especially in some of the southern states where things are getting hotter and hotter, and also where, who can deny what just happened in Florida and other parts of Southwest, the United States that got drastically hit by the weather from the hurricanes. So just in the last week, I had a few reach outs from people, yes, living in Florida, who want to get out. They're tired of the hurricanes, the extreme weathers. And while Florida has been a destination that people have been absolutely flocking to for the past few years, and the population has boomed, now people are realizing there's some things that are disturbing going on in these areas now that are causing them to second guess living in those areas. Now, from the conversations that I've been having with people in Florida talking about moving out, is that they ultimately loved living in Florida. They moved there for the weather. They wanted to be in a place that they felt like they were on vacation a lot of the times. They wanted cheaper living. And there was a time when all of that felt like it was a little bit more manageable. But if you have been living under a rock, we got a little thing called insurance that has really been starting to rear its ugly head in southern states, especially states all over the country where heavy weather patterns and just things that are happening are pretty extreme, causing these insurance companies to even decide not to insure housing. And I can't imagine being a homeowner myself, having to worry if I'll either be able to get insured, let alone some of these insurance payments that people are making. I talked to somebody in Texas who pays $12,000 a year for their insurance. And up here in the Pacific Northwest, we just don't have that problem as we speak. So it was alarming to me to hear that people are having to make decisions about whether they can afford to stay there. And they're even more so worried, am I going to always be insured? Like, even if I make these payments down the road, am I going to get dropped because of something's out of my control? So in talking to a lot of people who live in these states where extreme weather patterns exist, insurance is now the next housing crisis, in my personal opinion. I've been tracking this, watching this. I do have family that live in Florida, and they are talking about this. And more importantly, I have some friends that have some parents that live in Florida, and they live on the Gulf. And guess what? They cannot get insurance. They got hit by this last hurricane, had zero insurance. Their insurance company dropped them a year ago. So when they got flooded on their main level, guess what? They have to out of pocket pay to restore that full main level. And I thought, my God, people are going to have some serious money in order to live in certain parts of Florida if you can't get insured, because just to self-insure these days, I can't even imagine. I had an insurance claim on my house a few years ago because I had a water pipe break. Thank God I had insurance. I think it was an upwards of $40,000 of restoration, and I had to move out of my house for a few months. But imagine not having insurance, and you have to cover that cost in addition to paying your mortgage and living somewhere while your house is getting restored. Now, maybe there's a lot of people who have means down in certain areas. Maybe they do. But at the end of the day, the hassle of it. So I had a call from somebody in Florida who did not have any damage to their house from the hurricane. They had a little bit of a mess to clean up, but nothing crazy. But even still, the whole anticipation and getting ready for that hurricane and then worrying about your house while you're not there if it got damaged, and then coming back and having to clean up whatever mess. And not only that, but the city and the neighborhoods around them were just destroyed. So I can only imagine what that must feel like. I'm probably too lazy to live in an area like that because I don't want to pack up all my stuff and drive a million miles away and wait for a storm to hit to see if my house is even still standing. So I can appreciate that, but more so is the cost, right? Because at the end of the day, if your house doesn't get hit with it, it really comes down to, are you worried about things being insurable down the road? You know, I don't know what's going to happen with insurance, but right as we speak, it doesn't seem like it's going to get better. In fact, these last two hurricanes were really, really damaging for a lot of areas back to back. And I had placed something on one of my social media channels about this very topic, and an insurance adjuster popped up and said, you darn well best believe that we at insurance companies are watching the weather patterns getting worse and factoring that into how we insure and if we insure. Now, I've watched some of you guys make comments about the Pacific Northwest and that we have wildfires. Now, I'm not denying that we have wildfires. We do have wildfires here on the West Coast, a lot in California. They've had problems with that for years. That's why a lot of insurance companies have left California. That's actually why we get a lot of California transplants, believe it or not. They're sick and tired of dealing with wildfires and the lack of and the cost of insurance. But here in Portland, we have only had one time that we got really close to one in 2020. Now, 2020 was a weird year. We did have a fire or two that kind of broke out in further rural areas farther out from Portland that did cause some of our communities to have to evacuate for a short period of time, but it didn't get close enough that a lot of us worry about it. Certainly in the Metro Portland area, we don't worry about wildfires at this point. It's not to say we couldn't or that it's not a threat, but we just don't have it like, you know, you think it's bad in places like California. But all that being said, I just wanted to bring up this point is that a lot of people are realizing that in the long run, those areas they're living in may not be as livable as they once thought. If we continue to have hotter and hotter weather, if we continue to have hotter and hotter water in the Gulf and the Atlantic, and the storms continue to rise, that's a problem. In fact, I watched something on the news the other day that scientists are considering a Cat 6. Right now, we only go up to a Cat 5, but this last Hurricane Milton, the pressure was so low, it almost broke their records in terms of how low a pressure can go. So they're talking about making Cat 6 because of the water getting so hot that it may be the case that we have another category. Also, I saw things in Arizona. There was a podcast, the All In podcast, that reported that back in the 80s, there was only 10 days on average over 110 degrees in all the year of Arizona. Now it's over 70 days a year get over 110 degrees. So things are changing. Weather's getting more extreme for whatever reason. We're not here to argue that. But at the end of the day, I think we're going to see a lot more climate refugees making decisions to move out long term, realizing that they just don't want to put up with it anymore. They don't want the heat. They don't want the heaviness. And I'm seeing it all across the board. So whether it's insurance, you know, breathing down your back, causing prices to climb or not to be covered, or you're realizing that they just don't want to put up with this weather anymore. It's too hot, it's too much, too many unknowns. They're making a call to say, can I deal with Portland weather? Yes, you can. We're very, very, very mild. We get a lot of rain and gray skies, so we can tolerate that. Hey, maybe go visit Florida instead of live there, or go visit Arizona, or go visit some of these places when the weather's a little bit easier to deal with, but maybe you have to make a decision. So if that's you and you want to comment below, I want to hear your comments. I know you guys have, especially on this topic. A lot of people move out of Oregon because of the weather. If they're not used to these gray days, these long winters, it can be tough. Obviously, our fall and summer and spring are to die for, but there's a good 6 to 8 months a year that could be harder for you if that's a factor. But is it as hard as not being insurance covered right or too expensive? Is it as hard as going through hurricanes? I don't know. That's up for you personally to decide. But if you are thinking about making a move to Portland and handling this kind of weather, come join us. Let's get on a call and talk about it. And maybe this is the right place for you long term. All of our contact information is listed below. Reach out to us. We want to hear from you. And especially if you're making a move out here, let us help you do that. All right. See you on the next video.